Hey, I'm Sug.
And I'm Dan.
And this is the Demystified Zone.
The only podcast that has been pre-banned in North Korea.
What? Hey, what's up, Dan?
Hey, Sug.
So right before we got in the air, you were bragging about this incredible pizza.
Yes.
As I look at your screen right now, you have a bike-friendly backpack up.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing here? Are we here to work or are we here to shop? Is that what's happening?
I'm going to close my screen.
Yes.
I feel very unsafe.
Your screen
here.
time is over for today. Tell me about this pizza.
Oh, my gosh. It's called Uncle Jerry's. It's in Cary, Illinois, pretty far away from
Free
Chicago.
advertisement, just throwing it out there.
Oh, my goodness.
This is Dan approved. I have not eaten here, folks. So this is only Dan's endorsement, not mine.
Deep dish pizza. You know how deep dish pizza can feel like too thick and heavy sometimes?
I thought that was the point.
But it was a little thinner than your standard deep dish, right? Like
an Eduardo's kind of deal?
But I don't love Eduardo's because it's got a little too much filling in it. They compared to Lou Malnati's, it's like half the filling. But the crust, the outer edge of the crust, they bake the cheese into it, so it's like caramelized cheese.
Yes.
On the outside, I'm drooling. What's your favorite pizza in Chicago? Deep dish or whatever?
Right now it changes. I love pizza. Recently I've been there's two different types I'm into right now. Detroit style.
Oh, yeah.
And there was our local neighborhood bar used to have this incredible Detroit style. The chef left, though. I'm so sorry to see you go, Chris. Please come back. He was really good. But he made a really good Detroit-style pizza. So that was my favorite. But since he's gone, I'm now into the true Chicago-style pizza, which is the tavern-style pizza.
Yeah, the squares.
Like the thick, cheesy. And there's one by the Sox Stadium, Comiskey. Guaranteed rate. I'm sorry, whatever.
Guaranteed rate.
What kind of terrible name is that? Anyway. By Comiskey.
Yeah.
Called Phil's. You ever been there? It's well known. It's just been around forever.
Oh, really?
Phil's is solid. I like that. But anyway, I love it all. I love New York style. Yeah, I love all the styles. Actually, there's one style I don't like. Colorado, which is not really.
What?
Have you heard of this? Mountain pie?
No.
I'm sure I'm going to get some slack from Colorado listening, but it's the stupidest pizza ever. It's just like, it's so stupid. You know what their sell is? Oh, first of all, it's just like this. It looks like a loaf of bread.
Really?
Like a circular loaf of bread. It's so thick.
Okay.
But it's just all bread.
Oh,
and then they put
on.
toppings and sauce on, but it's like bread. It's like a bread beach until you hit the water, but the beach is like 100 feet long.
Oh no.
So it's like all crust. It's like bread. They call it mountain pie. And then their sell is after you eat the meaty part and the ingredient part, you pour honey over the crust and you eat this bread and honey. It's bread and honey.
No.
And it's not even that good of bread. And okay, I'm judging, and I had this over 10 years ago because my brother who had lived in Colorado at the time was like, hey, let me introduce you to Colorado pizza. I'm like, okay, I'm open to every new pizza. Not this one. This is the only pizza I've come across that I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You cannot call yourself pizza. This is bread.
Yeah.
Honey bread.
That does not... The way you describe it, although you had an agenda when giving your information, but the way you describe it makes it sound disgusting.
My experience was not good. If someone wants to send me a good Colorado mountain pie, okay, I'll try. I will try. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm always wrong.
Yeah.
But I was not wrong.
It does not sound good.
Yes.
It does not sound good.
Don't get it. Save yourself the trip.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry's. You're welcome, Jerry's. If you get 3 Korean people to show up in your restaurant, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, you know what? This is a great segue into our topic today.
Yes.
It couldn't be more on point, actually.
All right.
We're going to be talking about mental health today.
Yes.
And what better way to keep your mental health good than not eating mountain pie? That doesn't even sound good. Mountain pie, it sounds like feces, like scat, bear scat. Ugh.
That's true. That mountain pie.
Mountain pie.
Yeah.
Come on. All right, I digress. Mental health. We should have done this episode when it was May, but you know what? It's okay. Mental health awareness needs to be around all the time.
Yeah.
And we are constantly, our own mental health is always in check with each other because we have many issues.
Many.
But it just like came to us. We're like, you know what? I wonder. What is it like? What is the state, or what is the, I don't even know, what is the posture towards mental health in North Korea? Yeah. Dan, any thoughts? Any guesses? Maybe. I mean, you have of the two of us, you have interacted with the most North Koreans. Tell me if there's been any glimpses or just understanding of what their perspective or how they handle mental health.
Yeah, it really does seem like they are a chama culture. Chama means just bear it in Korean.
I thought that means like chill out.
No, no, it doesn't.
Again,
like if you have to go,
I am not Korean, y'all. Clearly.
If you have to go pee, well, growing up, if I had to go pee and I'd tell my mom I have to go bad, she'd always say chama, just bear it. Just endure.
I was always told to like chama, like calm the F down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
But maybe
both.
Like chill out. Take a chill pill.
Oh, really? Huh. Interesting. Anyway, so North Korea seems like a culture where, like, they encourage toughing it out over addressing the problem, and very similar to maybe our parents' culture.
Yeah.
It's post-war, right? Like things were hard, and our parents were definitely told when they're growing up, well, that's how things are. You need to toughen up. It's your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that potentially North Korea still has this perspective towards mental health as it's not a disease or a condition that you cannot control. It is you and your will and your mind. You are choosing to be.
And if you need to seek mental health help, then you're crazy, right? Then you are
already a person who's off the deep end.
Right. It's like
you've lost touch with reality.
Right. Like in the worst schizophrenia case, right? That's how they picture, those are the types of people who need mental health.
So, okay, let's talk about that though. How do they treat people with schizophrenia, severe schizophrenia, severe cases of, not being able to be functional?
Yeah, no idea. I've never heard of any of that.
Okay, interesting. Well, we have some information.
Yeah.
I did a little digging. Again, this is, it's not speculation. I think this comes from reputable sources. It's just everyone's information is a little cloudy when it comes to North Korea, and especially in something that is not widely reported. It's even harder. So here I found some, and we'll put, again, the links into our show notes on different resources. So we went through, I found a PubMed article from 2010. There's this Cambridge 2020 kind of resource article. The Guardian did a little piece on it. But the first thing I want to start off with is this information source talking about number 49 hospitals. Have you heard of this before?
I never heard of that. So
I'm just going to read this straight here. So it states, this is something from called the Borgen Project. It says, although North Korea does not utilize psychiatry or counseling to treat mental illness, those deemed mentally ill are placed in number 49 hospitals upon their family's request. These facilities practice antiquated techniques such as insulin coma therapy, where staff members inject subjects with high doses of insulin in order to create a coma-like state for days. The stigma surrounding the number 49 inhabitants also caused North Korean society to brand these individuals as outcasts. As a result of this, families with relatives in 49 facilities often lose their songbun status.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well, that makes sense, I guess, right? Like you get labeled as a 49 person, which I guess is code in North Korea for a person with mental health issues, year of Songbun just drops through the floor.
Yeah. They probably wouldn't be fans of the San Francisco 49ers. Anyway, sorry. Sorry, that was so random.
They must be very confused by that.
By that title. 49ers. Why would you name your team that?
Yeah, they're just like, you Americans. Why would you do that? Why would you put all your mental health patients on one team? That's foolish. They're going to lose. In any case, so this is actually a really good insight into Korean culture, which not far from what I thought it would be.
Yeah,
honestly, my idea in my in my wild imaginative speculation, I thought it was going to be like a horror movie with those insane asylums back in the 50s or 40s where they just locked people up because they understand mental illness, and so they just did terrible things to them, obviously in these horror movies, and
Terminator
and
2.
real life. Sarah Connor,
yeah,
but her thing was kind of real. But no, so she saw a robot from the future. It was real. How could anyone?
But
believe
that guy licked her face.
But how could,
My kids recently saw Terminator 2 and they were blown away.
by the licking of the face? Were they confused by that scene?
By the whole movie, yeah.
Like, Dad, why were they licking her face? Did it taste good? We digress. All right. So that was my, they don't know. It's antiquated. They don't know how to handle people who have mental issues. And so they lock them up. Or they put them in straitjackets or padded cells, and they do tests on them, which it sounds like it's not too far from that.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
And you just have to imagine that these are the most extreme cases, right, of mental health, mental illness that people would be sent to these facilities for. I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah, actually. I don't know. Because especially now we've seen so many more advances in understanding mental health and as a broader view, right?
Yeah.
There's a spectrum of different, issues and complications for people. But then there's a line, I think, of functionality, right? We often define or talk about it in terms of how functional can you be in society without creating disruption or for yourself or somebody else, which I imagine, to your point, is the North Korean line. But how difficult would that be? You know what I mean? Let's say you had, you were diagnosed with, or you could be diagnosed with as a bipolar, and you're in North Korea, and your family member has this, and you're just trying to make them seem quote unquote normal, so that your Songbun doesn't get trashed or you don't get reported as. Yeah. I wonder, and in this little snippet here was saying families could request their relatives, and I wonder how many families send.
It has to. That's what I'm saying. I think it has to get to such a point where they would have to risk their songbun to send their family there. Right?
Yeah,
it has to be so bad.
That's man, talk about a rock in a hard place.
Yeah, and you have to imagine too, right? Like, just everyday North Korean life doesn't lend itself to good mental health, right?
Yeah.
Like, the famine, right? And the threat of being taken to a prison camp for pretty inane things, like saying the wrong thing or someone perceiving what you say is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, they are trying to close down on you, right? And I can't imagine that society being very good for mental health to begin with.
It makes me sad because I think about many of my friends who, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, and I apologize if I'm offending them, but like on the spectrum,
right.
They're not autistic or but they show signs of it maybe, or they have, but they're completely functional. And, but even in their case of like how many times they've described to me just how they view the world differently and they interpret how things are said differently. And in a society like Korea, if you have this perspective and everything is being monitored, everything is being misinterpreted all the time as something negative too, that if you say the wrong thing out of place, or you do the wrong thing, or you act a certain way, how difficult it is to navigate that. Now, I don't want to go down this generalization. I am already doing it, but even more so, that there is normalcy. We've learned this even onto this podcast. There's normalcy, even as there's government minders who have compassion to them.
And proof of that is that North Koreans miss North Korea, right?
Yeah. And that even within your own communities, you might be doing something illegal, but people will be like, well, we're in on it together, so don't worry, I got your back.
Right.
You got my back, including government officials. So it's not so... We're painting a dark picture and a general picture, but the reality of that is that at the highest levels, this is how they feel. Yeah. And this is the policy that they're putting out. Oh, by the way, number 49 came from a government policy towards basically an issue, maybe a directive that just said, hey, these hospitals need to be created for mental health. Just
the name number 49 hospitals just tells you how impersonal and cold these institutions must be.
I wonder what number 20 hospital is. That was a bad
or
joke.
50.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if you get to 100, what are you then? So one of the things, again, this is just gleaning from these resources we've had, is it's a self-defeating cycle. So they came out with this directive of number 49 hospitals, and because of that, they created this stigma around being a psychiatrist, essentially, or a psychologist. And so all the trained medical professionals in North Korea avoided that profession because essentially you were getting sent off to these remote 49 hospitals where you're just dealing with, and you're ill-equipped to deal with patients with mental health problems of the most extreme, most likely. Yeah. And the state is telling you you're going to just put these people in insulin comas and deal with them, manage them. Who wants to sign up for that profession? You know what I mean? It's caused this rift in doctors who want to go study psychiatry or...
Interesting.
That this is at least what people are speculating. That's why we don't hear any medical news about psychiatric help or therapy, things like that in North Korea.
I mean, it's not that much better in South Korea either. And for example, last time I was in Korea, I was talking to someone and sharing with them that someone that we are close with has anxiety issues, right? And this Korean person laughed in my face like, oh, what does she have anything to be anxious about? Right? First of all, she attributed it to something in her life, right? That, it's her life is so good, therefore there's no need to be anxious. Yeah. Right? And it was laughable. Yeah. And I wasn't offended either, because that's how every Korean that I grew up with saw anxiety. Yeah. I never thought that anxiety was a problem that needed to be addressed as a mental health problem, even though I had anxiety issues growing up, looking back, right? Yeah. So, very...
I think that's also the outcome of trauma. Yeah. Severe trauma, especially in the case of North Koreans and, our parents' generation and especially our grandparents' generation who went through war, and anyone in any place in the world who goes through war. Right. And has to go through that trauma of survival and literal survival and destruction and death. Mm-hmm. North Koreans who aren't necessarily in a war, but live in that kind of condition of just fear, oppression, and
I mean, just look at
violence.
Just look at the history of Korea, right? In the 1900s, Japanese occupation, which is horrific. World War II, they were quote unquote freed but split up. Then the Korean War, right? I mean, what would that produce? What type of people would that produce?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing it in North Korea. We saw it in our parents' generation very clearly. Now looking back, the effects of trauma.
Yeah, and our parents' generation, to date us again as our ages, the tail end of that, obviously we are
our parents were
second
born
generation Koreans.
around the war.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we are the first, I mean, Koreans, I don't know other cultures, we're weird. We like call ourselves second generation, but we're really first generation Americans. Did you know that? I always talk to people about this. I'm like, I say I'm a second generation Korean, but they're like, but you were born here, right? You were the first born here. I'm like, yeah, so aren't you first generation? I'm like, you would think that.
What would you call the parents' generation then?
They're Koreans.
Oh, okay.
But no, but I know, but I don't know, someone can tell us otherwise, but from what I understand, Koreans, we count the immigrant generation, the first generation.
Yeah.
And maybe others do that too, I don't know. We even have 1.5. Are you 1.5?
I'm 1.5.
Why do you consider yourself 1.5? I feel like people use different things.
Because I was born in Korea and I immigrated here. But
Okay.
I was very young when I did. So culturally, I'm mostly American.
A second generation. See, I go by culture because I feel like 1.5 is like you are, like my brother was born in, no, he was born here. I can't remember. He went
the
back.
youngest child doesn't need to know these
I don't need to know
details.
this name. What are you talking about? Someone just write it down. But anywho, it's fine. 1.5, 2, second. The whole point being that the trauma of the war, Korean War, was the brunt of it. I feel like was in our grandparents' generation, and then our parents also were like the last to know that feeling. I mean, a lot of our parents always said. I mean, don't your family and parents have like really ridiculous stories about their poverty?
Oh yeah,
and some of them almost so ridiculous. I feel like they're lying, maybe just to make me feel guilty about something.
Like the classic Korean American story is.
And we don't mean to downplay because some of these are probably real. Okay,
Yeah.
This is just our family's stories that maybe are not true.
Yeah,
Maybe they are.
this is the classic story though. So poor growing up that you couldn't afford meat.
Sure.
So you were told to eat your rice and look at the picture of a fish on the wall while you're eating and imagine that you're eating a fish.
Really? I never heard that one.
I've heard that so many times from so many people.
But that sounds real. That sounds real.
I'm not saying that this is false.
Oh, okay. I was talking more like, carry a bucket of water from the Mount Jeju for after you cross the ocean.
Right.
For your daily water.
For your daily
hundreds of miles I walked with no shoes through glass and bullet casings and just
landmines.
I dodged the landmines.
Yeah.
But
I mean there are those stories as well. Like my dad said that I think there were a total of 7 kids who survived growing up, and their dad got the first pick of everything, and then the kids,
because he's the oldest son.
No, my dad was one of the younger ones, but no, their dad, my grandfather, got the first pick. Yeah, sorry. And then the kids, all 7 of them, had one ginormous bowl that they had to eat out of, and he had to fight for. That's why he says that's why I eat so fast.
That sounds real though.
These are, for sure.
Now we're downplaying things that are real that are our actual.
I keep on bringing up
trauma.
These weird things, these real things. I'm sorry.
We should just talk about them. So these are the trauma. Like again, these are the traumas, and we're going back to North Korea now.
Yeah,
that's still happening. Like starvation and hunger is a real and prevalent problem in North Korea still.
Yeah.
So those things that now our parents who have successfully made a life here in America or elsewhere, even maybe in South Korea. South Korea has grown so much economically in the last 50 years. It's crazy.
That hunger is no longer.
Yeah, I mean, they're still homeless and things like that, but they're considered a wealthy nation now. That, so like the North Korean society and culture are still stuck in this
Yeah.
post-war,
This war mentality.
post-war system.
Yeah.
And so that mental health is, sorry to say, is on the bottom of the list. I feel like,
totally.
which makes sense if the refugees are saying like, why are you anxious?
Yeah.
What do you have to be anxious about?
Right. Exactly. No, that wasn't even a refugee. It was a South Korean wealthy citizen who said that to me. It was not a refugee.
Oh, interesting.
It was just a normal South Korean person who said that to me.
What was the context? Why were they from a North Korean refugee camp or something at one point? Just an observation?
Close people that we know in South Korea.
Got it.
Just getting together for dinner, catching up. And I was just sharing about someone we know and how they have anxiety issues.
Yeah, and I've seen that before. I guess I've seen definitely confusion. Like, for example, when I did work in Haiti after the earthquake, there was extreme poverty in there. There were a lot of it was just a mess, and people showing confusion at like American anxiety and like depression and like, well, but not like in a condescending way. They were just confused. They're like, oh, interesting.
Really?
Like, that's a problem. Like, what, like trauma? And they thought like, oh, is it because of the gun violence? They're like, is it like because the murders and people killing each other? Like, no. It's just a symptom someone has. Like they have depression, and they're like, really, about what though? Like, and again, it wasn't in a condescending way at all. It was just curiosity, and which is again a luxury that we have to live in the States.
It is a luxury. So there's so many layers to that, right? Because North Korean people, they do have to fight for survival through China, right? Once they get to South Korea, that's when these mental health issues show up, right? When you are in survival mode, you just have to get things done, right? And you're probably not going to notice things like depression and anxiety and things like that, right? You'll notice schizophrenia, bipolar, like the things that have more of an outward appearance of mental health issues, right?
Yeah.
So, but once you get to a country when everything's sort of taken care of for you and you're safe, that's when these mental health issues will come in, right? Yeah. That's when they'll feel like, even though everything is okay, they'll feel this overwhelming anxiety or something. And I mean, or perhaps it's just because now that they're so affluent, they can think about these things too. I don't know what it is, right? Like, as Americans, right? Maybe we're the crazy ones, right? Maybe, I don't mean to say crazy, but maybe we're the ones that are unique and have these unique problems, right?
Well, it takes resources to be able to have I would say it takes resources to have the luxury to think about these things and address them in a way that's appropriate.
You're not trying to eat every day, right?
Exactly. There's something that you brought up about the silent symptoms versus the outward ones. Yeah. There's this really interesting article, and again, these will be in the notes here. The Guardian did this piece in 2015. They interviewed a North Korean refugee, and they asked him about mental health. And there was this statement this person made, and it says, and I think this is speculation, so take it for what it is. It says, people say that it's the smart people who become mentally ill in North Korea. They are ambitious and talented in North Korean society, but because they are faced with numerous constraints and restrictions, they often become deeply frustrated. So I did not witness many cases of depression in North Korea, but I did see many disturbed people suffering from hallucinations or nervous breakdowns in my neighborhood, and they were all at once very smart. Ooh. I definitely could see that happening, where these brilliant minds were being boxed in and like constrained to this, and that just driving them to a place of just unhealthy. They just can't handle it.
Could you imagine like prince or some prolific artist in that sort of society where they're always being, being told to tamp down their creativity.
I mean, not even told. They're just ordered. They can't. Yeah. There's no outlet.
What would happen
There's no outlet.
to a prolific artist or business person or engineer where they're always told, hey, don't think about that. Let's think about how we can help the regime.
Yeah, that would be, yes. I can see.
Wildly frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting just on like a societal level for them where all their talent and these people with gifts are just like, being, I don't want to say thrown away, but just, in a sense that they're not able to express their gifts because of it. It's just hindering the growth of their own society in that way. Right.
Yeah. It's a tragedy. It really is.
I wonder, okay, let's think positively here. KJU, that guy, he's all into trends and hip new things. We all know this.
Yeah.
What is the approach he could potentially take to turn this around?
Oh, wow.
Is there a way for him? How do we help him?
I mean, just by addressing it, I think he would really just making it untaboo, like destigmatizing it. He would do a lot. I think
it would be great if he shared with his people on news that he goes to a counselor, that he goes to a therapist. And he goes, so he just says something like really off the cuff, like, "Oh, I was talking to my therapist the other day."
Yeah.
And he's saying, we're talking about my basketball shoe collection, and I think I'm a little too obsessive about it. And he says I should probably back off on that a little bit. It's just kind of like a little drop about like, he goes to see a therapist. I feel like that could do a lot.
Right.
They could really push forward the mental health issue just by him saying that. Like, I was talking to my confidant. /therapist. In fact, I might take Chua to him next time.
Yes.
And get some child therapy in there too. Get that.
Take my wife and get couples therapy.
She's been seeing somebody else. We talk about it.
It'd be good to get on the same page with my wife.
That's an easy step.
Yeah.
KJ, you don't even have to see someone. For real. If you really don't want to, I recommend you do. But if you don't want to for optics,
just
whatever,
say it. Yeah.
Just drop it in there, real casual.
Real
I was talking to my friend Dennis, and we're talking about our therapist, and like he really likes his. I don't really like mine. Yeah. Just even that.
Yeah.
Dennis recommended some guys to me. Thought they're Russian, so.
So they're good.
Yeah, they're good. They're at the top of their field. KJU, there's something easy right there.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy for you, but maybe you don't announce it. You just say it in passing for some of your upper heads. Let it trickle out.
Exactly. Your generals, make them
say,
and
they're like, oh, maybe I should get a therapist.
Right.
They're like, oh, great leader's getting a therapist. Maybe I need to get some therapists out there. And then we create a little, ripple.
Or the entertainers have their entertainers, they
just overhear.
Right. Exactly.
They overhear. Whoever the trendsetters, the influencers of North Korean society, they just need to hear that from you.
Is there any other influencer in North Korea besides KJU? Is he the only influencer?
Well, there's the propagandist influencers.
Right. The lady.
Who influences the influencer? Who tells them how to influence is the question. That's who we got to get to with this messaging for mental health.
We do.
Awareness.
We do.
Oh, Marshall. I hope that you hear this message today and you find some help yourself and you be well.
Be well.
What do you have to say to him, Dan? What would you say to Marshall today about mental health awareness?
I'm always so bad when you ask me to say it because I have so much indignation towards him.
I know this is why we're doing it. This is also this is a form of
therapy for
you.
Me.
Yeah, to have to love him as a person, but then also admonish him with advice.
I think you're a special person deep down inside.
Wait, you don't have to compliment him. Just give him a little friendly advice. Okay, I'm sorry.
This is called a compliment sandwich.
Oh, okay.
I think you're a really special guy, I'm sure, deep down inside. but perhaps you can encourage your people to address these issues so it doesn't, it's for your country's benefit if everyone is mentally strong. But you're a really good guy, so you'll figure it out.
If you like the show, please give us a like, download, share us on your favorite podcast store or your favorite Chinese smuggler.